I met Jonathan Cross in an elevator I was not authorized to enter. At the time, I did not know he was one of the richest men in America. I only knew that he was standing between me and the closing doors while rain hammered against the glass walls of the lobby behind him. It was 8:18 on a Monday night in October. My 5th day at Cross Meridian Group. My 5th day of pretending that the navy blue blazer I had bought at a thrift store looked professional enough for a company where the reception desk was carved from Italian marble. Most of the building had already emptied. The last employees moved through the lobby in expensive coats, carrying leather briefcases and talking into wireless headsets. Outside, downtown Chicago had dissolved into rain, headlights, and the red glow of brake lights reflected across Wacker Drive. I had been staring at spreadsheets for 11 hours. My eyes burned. My stomach had given up asking for dinner around 7. And the only thing standing between me and the 2 buses and 1 Red Line train I needed to reach home was an elevator door that was closing too quickly. "Please hold it," I called. The man inside raised one hand. The doors stopped. "Thank you." I slipped inside, clutching my laptop bag against my side. A loose strand of dark blonde hair had escaped from my ponytail and stuck to my cheek. My shoes were damp from crossing the lobby entrance. One heel made a faint squeaking sound against the polished floor. Perfect. Nothing said promising young financial analyst like sounding like a wet dog toy. The man pressed a button before I could see the panel. The doors closed. For the first few seconds neither of us spoke. I noticed his suit first. It was charcoal gray, perfectly fitted, and probably worth more than my family's car. His white shirt was open at the collar, but nothing about him looked casual. He stood with the stillness of someone who never had to move out of another person's way. He was older than the executives I had seen on my floor. Late 40s, maybe? Tall. Broad shoulders. Dark brown hair touched with silver at the temples. His face was not soft or conventionally friendly. It was controlled. That was the word. Controlled. A straight nose. A firm mouth. Pale skin marked by the faint lines of a man who had spent years making decisions other people were afraid to make. His eyes were gray, almost the color of Lake Michigan before a storm. He looked tired. Not ordinary tired. Not missed lunch and needed coffee tired. He looked like a man who had forgotten what rest felt like and had decided he no longer required it. I looked away before he caught me studying him. Then the elevator moved. Up. I stared at the glowing numbers above the door. 48. 49. 50. My department was on 32. I stepped toward the panel. There were no ordinary floor buttons. Only a black glass screen and a small silver slot for an access card. My heart sank. "This is not the employee elevator." "No," the man said. His voice was low and calm. The kind of voice that made a statement sound final without needing volume. I glanced at him. I gathered that. One corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. "You were in a hurry." "I have a long commute." "Where are you going?" "South Deering." Something changed in his expression. It was small, but I saw it. "You live there?" "My family does." The elevator continued climbing. 54. 55. "Can you send this back to 32? I asked. "Not while it is moving." "Of course not." My phone vibrated inside my bag. I pulled it out. 3 missed calls from my mother. A text from my sister Hannah. Mom's clinic called again. "Do not panic. Just call me." Fear moved through me so quickly that my fingers went cold. I called immediately. Hannah answered after 1 ring. "What happened?" "Evie, calm down." People only said calm down when something was wrong. "Is Mom at the hospital?" "No. She is home." "Then why did the clinic call?" "They want another blood panel. Her kidney numbers changed." "How much?" "I do not know yet." "Hannah." "I do not know," she repeated. "Mom would not let me speak to the nurse. She said she would handle it tomorrow." My mother's version of handling something usually meant hiding the bill beneath a stack of grocery coupons until the collection notices started arriving. I will call her. Do not push too hard. She worked a double shift. With her blood pressure? She said Mrs. Donnelly needed someone overnight. Mrs. Donnelly was an 87-year-old woman my mother helped care for 3 nights a week. Margaret Hart had been told repeatedly to reduce her workload. She responded by accepting more shifts. Where is Dad? In the garage. At 9 o'clock? You know how he gets when he is worried. Yes. I did. My father repaired things when he could not control them. Radios. Coffee makers. Car engines. A broken chair that had already been repaired 6 times. Anything except himself. I will be home as soon as I can. Ryan said he can pick you up from the station. No. He starts deliveries at 5. Evie. I will be fine. I ended the call before my sister could argue. For a moment, the quiet inside the elevator felt too clean. The man beside me had turned his eyes toward the glowing numbers, giving me the privacy of pretending he had not heard every word. I appreciated that. I also resented that someone wearing a suit like his had been standing 3 feet away while I tried to calculate whether my mother could afford another medical test. Kidney disease? He asked. I looked at him. You were listening. It was difficult not to. She has chronic kidney disease. Early stage. Is she insured? Technically. His eyes returned to me. That answer usually means no. It means her plan covers enough to send us letters explaining why it will not cover the rest. The elevator passed 58. I slipped my phone back into my bag. You work for Cross Meridian? He asked. For 5 days. In which division? Corporate Risk and Compliance. He looked at my laptop bag. And they keep new analysts until 8 at night? They do not keep us. They give us deadlines. Who gave you yours? Martin Keller. The man's expression did not change, but something sharpened behind his eyes. I had met Martin Keller on my first morning. He was a senior manager who wore bright ties, interrupted women during meetings, and used the phrase entry-level mindset as if it were a medical condition. What was the assignment? The stranger asked. A preliminary exposure review for the South Harbor Redevelopment Initiative. Real estate. Real estate, logistics, municipal bonds, environmental remediation, and several hundred families who do not know that a group of people in this building have already calculated how cheaply they can be removed from their homes. The words left my mouth before judgment could catch them. Exhaustion did that to me. So did fear. It removed the careful filters I had spent 24 years building. The man turned fully toward me. You believe the residents are being removed? I believe the relocation budget assumes most of them will accept the first offer because they cannot afford attorneys. That is a serious accusation. It is a mathematical observation. Based on 5 days of employment? Based on 12 years of public property records, 3 environmental reports, and a relocation model that counts occupied homes as underutilized parcels. His gaze stayed on mine. The elevator felt smaller. Perhaps the analyst who built the model knows something you do not. Perhaps. You do not sound convinced. I grew up in one of those underutilized parcels. Silence. Outside the elevator, somewhere beyond the steel and glass, thunder rolled over the city. The lights flickered. The elevator jerked. My hand shot toward the railing as the floor dropped beneath my feet. Only an inch. Maybe less. But my body did not know that. My shoulder slammed lightly against the wall. My laptop bag slipped. The stranger caught it before it hit the floor. Then the elevator stopped. Everything went still. The overhead lights dimmed to a pale emergency glow. I stared at the closed doors. No. The man set my bag upright. We are safe. You cannot know that. The braking system engaged. And you know that because? I know this building. Before I could ask what that meant, he pressed 2 fingers against a panel near the access slot. A hidden speaker clicked. Yes, Mr. Cross? A voice answered immediately. The name meant nothing to me for half a second. Then it meant everything. Mr. Cross. Cross Meridian. Jonathan Cross. My pulse stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. I turned my head and looked at the man beside me. The billionaire. Whose face appeared in business magazines. The founder and chief executive officer of the company that had hired me 5 days earlier. The man whose net worth was discussed in numbers so large they stopped sounding like money. Jonathan Cross looked back at me with the same unreadable gray eyes. We have stopped between 59 and 60, he told the speaker. We see it, sir. The storm caused a power transfer. The system should reset within 3 minutes. Confirm the brakes. Confirmed. There is no danger. Thank you. The speaker went silent. Jonathan lowered his hand. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. I had just accused his company of designing a system to remove poor families from their homes, while trapped inside his private elevator. On my 5th day, I closed my eyes. My identification badge is in my bag, I said finally. I know. You can save security the trouble of finding me. Why would security need to find you? To escort me out. You believe I dismiss employees for disagreeing with me? I believe men who own private elevators are probably not known for enjoying criticism. This time, he did smile. It was brief. Unexpected. And it changed his face enough to make me forget my fear for one dangerous second. Then his expression settled again. I do not own the elevator. You own the company. The company owns the building. That distinction probably matters more to your accountants than it does to me. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger. In interest. What is your name? Evelyn Hart. How old are you, Miss Hart? 24. Education? Bachelor's degree in finance and data analytics. Minor in public policy. Where? University of Illinois, Chicago. Scholarship? I stiffened. Why would you assume that? Because you said your mother works overnight care shifts while managing kidney disease, your father repairs things when he is worried, and you commute from South Deering. A private university would have been difficult without significant aid. He had built an accurate picture of my life from a 30-second phone call. I did not like how exposed it made me feel. Yes, I said. Full academic scholarship. And you? Graduated? Summa cum laude. You sound offended by the question. I am offended by most questions when I do not understand why they are being asked. The emergency light caught the silver at his temples. Martin Keller assigned you the South Harbor Review? Yes. Was he expecting an independent assessment? He was expecting me to update the risk language and make the numbers look less alarming. And instead, I made them more accurate. The elevator hummed. The lights brightened. We started moving again. My stomach tightened as the numbers resumed their climb. 60. 61. You said the relocation assumptions were mathematically unsound. Jonathan said. How unsound? The model assumes an 82% voluntary acceptance rate within the first 30 days. And historical performance? 51% across comparable projects. His face became still. Why is that difference not in the executive summary? It was removed. By whom? I do not know. That was not entirely true. The document history listed Martin Keller's employee identification number beside the final revision. But I had been at Cross Meridian for 5 days. Accusing my manager of manipulating a report directly to the chief executive officer seemed less like courage and more like professional self-destruction. Jonathan watched me. You do know. I know what the revision history says. I do not know who made the decision. Better answer. The elevator slowed. The doors opened onto the 63rd floor. There was no reception desk. No cubicles. No bright corporate artwork pretending to represent collaboration. Only a quiet corridor, dark wood, brushed steel, and windows stretching from floor to ceiling. Chicago spread beyond them in every direction, wet and glittering beneath the storm. A woman in a black suit hurried toward us. She was perhaps 40, with auburn hair pinned neatly at the back of her head and the controlled expression of someone who solved problems before other people noticed them. "Mr. Cross, are you all right?" "I am fine, Lila." Her gaze moved to me. Then to my blue temporary employee badge. Confusion crossed her face. "This is Evelyn Hart, Jonathan said. Corporate risk and compliance." I waited for him to explain why I was standing in the private executive lobby. He did not. Lila looked at him. "Mr. Vale is waiting in your office. The Singapore call was moved to 9. Move it to tomorrow. He said the port agreement cannot wait." "It can." The answer was quiet. Absolute. Lila nodded once. No argument. No surprise. That was when I first understood the difference between wealth and power. Wealth was the suit, the private elevator, the skyline beyond the glass. Power was saying 2 words and changing the schedules of people on the other side of the world. Jonathan turned to me. "The employee elevators are through that corridor." "Thank you." I tightened my grip on my bag. "Ms. Hart." I stopped. "Bring your South Harbor analysis to my office tomorrow morning." The muscles in my shoulders locked. "What time?" 8:30. "Should Mr. Keller attend?" "No." Lila's eyes moved between us. Jonathan held my gaze. "And do not change the numbers before I see them." The doors closed behind me as I entered the employee elevator. Only then did I realize my hands were shaking. By the time I reached the lobby, the storm had weakened, but the rain still covered the streets in silver. I stood beneath the building's glass awning and searched Jonathan Cross on my phone. His photograph appeared immediately. There was no mistaking him now. Jonathan David Cross. 49 years old. Founder, Chairman, and Chief Executive Officer of Cross Meridian Group. Estimated net worth of $18.6 billion. The articles listed his holdings as if describing a small country. Real estate. Freight and logistics. Renewable energy. Medical technology. Private hospitals. Cybersecurity. Media. Financial services. One photograph showed him testifying before Congress. Another showed him beside the mayor of Chicago. A third showed him at the opening of a children's hospital wing named after his late wife. His expression was the same in every picture. Calm. Distant. Untouchable. A bus passed, spraying water across the curb. I stared at the screen. 5 minutes earlier, that untouchable man had been standing in a stalled elevator, asking about my mother's health insurance. My phone vibrated. A calendar invitation appeared. Meeting, South Harbor Risk Review. Location, Executive Office, Floor 63. Attendees, Jonathan Cross. Evelyn Hart. No Martin Keller. No department director. No explanation. Just the 2 of us. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt like someone had opened a door beneath my feet. The trip home took an hour and 37 minutes. The red line was delayed near Roosevelt. A man slept across 3 seats with a plastic grocery bag beneath his head. 2 college students argued quietly over a chemistry assignment. A woman in medical scrubs leaned against the window, eyes closed, still wearing her hospital identification badge. By the time I reached the final bus, downtown had disappeared behind me. The buildings became shorter. The sidewalks became cracked. Streetlights cast weak yellow circles across rows of narrow houses, chain-link fences, corner stores, repair shops, and vacant lots where factories had once employed thousands of people. This was my Chicago. Not the city from Jonathan Cross's windows. The city beneath them. Our house stood on a narrow street near the river, 2 stories of faded red brick with a front porch my father had rebuilt 3 times. The railing leaned slightly to the left. The gutters needed replacing. A blue tarp covered one section of the garage roof. But the kitchen light was on. Home. I opened the front door to the smell of tomato soup and burnt toast. My 6-year-old niece ran toward me in purple socks. Aunt Evie! Lily wrapped both arms around my waist. I nearly lost my balance. You are supposed to be asleep. Grandma said I could wait. My mother stood in the kitchen doorway wearing gray sweatpants and the green cardigan she had owned since I was 14. At 53, Margaret Hart still had the same gentle blue eyes as Hannah and me. But the shadows beneath them had deepened. Her face looked pale. Too pale. You missed dinner, she said. You missed telling me the clinic called. Her mouth tightened. Hannah talks too much? Hannah talks exactly enough. I am fine. You worked a double shift. Mrs. Donnelly had no one else. You are not the only home health aide in Chicago. I am the one she trusts. That does not make your kidneys optional. Evelyn. She said my name softly, but the warning was there. We had repeated versions of this argument for 18 months. I worried. She minimized. I pushed. She smiled until I felt guilty. Then neither of us changed anything. Hannah entered from the living room carrying a stack of first-grade spelling papers. She was 28, 4 years older than me, with light brown hair cut to her shoulders and the exhausted patience of a public school teacher who spent all day with children before coming home to raise one. You are late, she said. I had a meeting. At 8 at night? Not exactly. Ryan's voice came from the kitchen table. What does that mean? My brother sat with one boot propped on an empty chair, eating soup directly from the pot. At 30, Ryan looked like a younger version of our father. Same square jaw. Same heavy eyebrows. Same tendency to treat suspicion as a survival skill. He wore a dark work jacket stained with motor oil. You are eating Mom's dinner, I said. She said she was not hungry. She needs to eat. I ate at Mrs. Donnelly's, Mom said. You hate Mrs. Donnelly's cooking. That is not relevant. From the garage came the slow scrape of metal against concrete. My father was still working. I set down my bag. Dad has been out there all night. He found a problem with the transmission in Mr. Alvarez's truck, Mom said. Mr. Alvarez cannot pay him. He will pay when he can. He still owes Dad from July. Ryan pointed his spoon at me. Welcome home, corporate America. I looked at him. What is that supposed to mean? It means 5 days in a glass tower, and you are already worried about accounts receivable. I have always worried about accounts receivable. That is what happens when the gas company sends shut-off notices. The room went quiet. Lily looked between us. Hannah touched my arm. Come sit down. I should have. Instead, I looked at my mother again. When is the blood test? Thursday. I will take you. You have work. I can leave early. You started last week. My mother is more important than my probationary period. Your mother wants you to keep the job that could change your life. Ryan laughed without humor. Cross Meridian does not change lives. It buys them cheap and sells them expensive. Not tonight, Mom said. But I had already heard the bitterness in his voice. What happened? Asked your company. I have been there 5 days, Ryan. And they have been circling this neighborhood for 5 years. They are redeveloping the industrial corridor. They are clearing it. Housing acquisition is one part of the proposal. One part. He set down the spoon. Mrs. Delgado got a letter Friday. They offered her $68,000 for the house her husband spent 30 years paying off. That may not have come from Cross Meridian. It came from South Harbor Residential Partners. The name hit me. South Harbor Residential Partners was listed in the project documents as a third-party acquisition consultant. My brother saw the recognition on my face. That is them, is it not? I need to see the letter. Why? Because the relocation model I reviewed assumes offers are based on fair market value. Ryan leaned back. And you believed it? No. The answer silenced him. My mother studied my face. What happened at work? I hesitated. Then Lily tugged my sleeve. Did you meet the boss? Children had a way of asking the one question adults were avoiding. I looked down at her. Yes. Was he mean? No. Was he old? Ryan coughed into his fist. I almost smiled. He is 49. That is old. Thank you, Dad said from the doorway. We all turned. Daniel Hart stood with one hand braced against the frame. He was 56, but the years since his accident had settled heavily across his shoulders. His dark blonde hair had gone mostly gray. His left leg remained stiff, especially in cold weather, and rain made the pain worse. There was grease on his hands and a deep line between his eyebrows. Who is 49? He asked. Jonathan Cross, Hannah said. My father went completely still. Not surprised. Not curious. Still. I noticed because my father was rarely motionless. Even when seated, his fingers tapped, adjusted, repaired, or reached for something. Now he simply stared at me. You met him? It was an accident. I entered the wrong elevator. What did he say? He asked about the report I was working on. What report? The South Harbor redevelopment. The color changed in his face. It faded slowly, beginning around his mouth. Dad? You need to stay away from that project. Ryan frowned. You know something? I know companies like Cross Meridian do not ask questions unless they have already decided which answers they want. Jonathan Cross asked me to bring him my analysis tomorrow. My father crossed the kitchen faster than his bad leg usually allowed. Do not! His voice cracked through the room. Lily flinched. Hannah immediately guided her toward the living room. Come on, sweetheart. Let us find your pajamas. Ryan watched Dad. Mom lowered her eyes. I felt the air in the kitchen change. What is this? I asked. Nothing. You just shouted at me in front of Lily. I am sorry. You went pale when I said his name. I am tired. So am I. Tell me the truth. My father looked toward my mother. Something passed between them. Old. Silent. Practiced. My skin prickled. Mom? She gathered the bowls from the table. Your father had a difficult day. That is not an answer. It is the only one we are having tonight. She carried the dishes to the sink. My father turned away. The conversation was over because they had decided it was over. That had been the law of my childhood. Daniel and Margaret Hart could survive unpaid bills, layoffs, medical emergencies, and one collapsing roof. But certain questions could empty a room faster than fire. Jonathan Cross was one of those questions. I barely slept. At 6 the next morning, rain still tapped against my bedroom window. My room had not changed much since high school. A narrow bed. A second-hand desk. Shelves filled with textbooks I could not bring myself to sell. My framed diploma hung above a radiator that clicked every 40 seconds. I dressed carefully. White blouse. Navy blazer. Black pants. The same shoes, now dry but still squeaking slightly. Downstairs, Mom had already left for an early shift. Dad sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee. I opened the refrigerator. There was half a carton of eggs, a jar of mustard, 2 apples, and a plastic container labeled Hannah's lunch, do not touch. I took an apple. Dad did not look up. You should call in sick. I am not sick. Then request a different assignment. I cannot request a different assignment on my 6th day. You can quit. The apple stopped halfway to my bag. You told me my entire life that quitting was the one thing a heart did not do. This is different. How? He stared into his coffee. Some buildings are built high enough that the people at the top forget the ground exists. That sounds like something you rehearsed instead of an explanation. His jaw tightened. I am trying to protect you. From a spreadsheet? From the people behind it. I studied him. Did you ever work for Jonathan Cross? No. The answer came too quickly. For Cross Meridian? No, for one of their companies? He pushed back his chair. I said no. You also told me there was nothing wrong when the bank sent a foreclosure notice. That was none of your business. It became my business when I used my college savings to catch up the mortgage. Pain crossed his face. I regretted the words immediately. But I did not take them back. My father stood. You think because you went to college, you understand how men like him operate. I think because I went to college, I learned to recognize when someone is avoiding a question. He walked toward the garage door. Evelyn. I waited. His hand rested on the doorknob. If Jonathan Cross asks about this family, you tell him nothing. Then he left. At 8:24, I stepped onto the 63rd floor of Cross Meridian Tower. Lila Morgan was waiting. Today she wore a cream blouse beneath her black jacket. A tablet rested against one arm. Ms. Hart. Good morning. You are early. 6 minutes. Mr. Cross considers that early. She turned and walked down the corridor. I followed. The executive floor was brighter in daylight. The city stretched beyond the windows beneath a low ceiling of gray clouds. The Chicago River looked like a dark ribbon between the buildings. We passed the conference room where 8 people sat around a table facing a screen. Every person stopped speaking when Jonathan crossed the far end of the corridor. He did not enter the room. He did not look at them. He simply passed. The silence followed him. Lila led me to a pair of dark wooden doors. Mr. Cross requested your unedited analysis. I held up my laptop bag. I brought it. He also requested the revision history. I brought that too. Her gaze rested on me for a moment. Mr. Keller has called this office 4 times since 7:30. My stomach tightened. Is he joining us? No. Does he know I am here? Yes. That was worse. Lila opened the door. Jonathan's office was large but almost severe. No gold fixtures. No wall of awards. No photographs with politicians. A steel desk stood near the windows. Books filled one wall. A black and white photograph of Chicago's old industrial waterfront hung behind a seating area. Jonathan stood near the glass, phone to his ear. He wore a dark suit without a tie. Yes, he said into the phone. Suspend the acquisition. A pause. All residential parcels. Another pause. I am aware of the cost. His voice remained level. No offers. No notices. No closings until I authorize them. He ended the call. I stood frozen inside the door. Jonathan turned. Good morning, Ms. Hart. Good morning. He gestured toward the conference table. Sit. I placed my laptop down. Lila entered behind me and set a cup of coffee near Jonathan's chair. Nothing near mine. Jonathan noticed. Ms. Hart? I am fine. That was not my question. I do not drink coffee. Lila looked surprised. Tea? She asked. Black, please. Breakfast? No, thank you. My stomach growled loudly enough to betray me. Jonathan looked at Lila. Bring breakfast. That is not necessary, I said. He sat across from me. Neither is fainting during a risk presentation. I have never fainted. Then consider this protection of an excellent record. Lila left. I opened my laptop before he could see that the comment had unsettled me. The screen displayed the South Harbor model. Jonathan leaned forward. Show me the 82% assumption. I did. For the next 20 minutes, he asked questions faster than Martin Keller's entire team had during my first week. Not broad questions. Precise ones. What properties had been used as comparables? Had the environmental burden been included in the valuation? Were relocation payments treated as operating costs or project capital? Which version of the model had been approved by legal? Who had authorized the 30-day acceptance window? He remembered every number I gave him. When I referred back to an earlier figure, he corrected me by 0.2%. I began to understand why a man from a working-class Chicago neighborhood had built an $18 billion empire. Jonathan Cross did not merely listen. He collected information. sorted it, tested it, then waited for the weakest part to break. Your conclusion, he said after 40 minutes? The current budget understates residential acquisition and relocation exposure by between $42 and $61 million. That range is wide. The company has incomplete occupancy data. We have census data. Census data does not tell us that Mrs. Delgado's adult son moved home after losing his construction job, or that the Robinson family converted their basement for an elderly parent. His gaze sharpened. You know these people? Some of them. You reviewed properties near your own home. I reviewed the entire acquisition map. But you recognized the neighborhood. Yes. Why did you not disclose the conflict? Heat rose into my face. I did not know my family's area was included when I received the assignment. When did you realize? Yesterday afternoon. And you continued. I believed the data was still valid. That is not the question. I closed my laptop halfway. If you think my address makes me incapable of objective analysis, assign someone else. I think pretending your address has no effect on you would make you incapable of objective analysis. The words stopped me. He leaned back. Objectivity is not the absence of personal knowledge, Ms. Hart. It is the discipline to account for it. I said nothing. Did you adjust any assumptions based on families you know personally? No. Did you hide information that weakened your conclusion? No. Did you exaggerate the financial exposure to protect your neighborhood? No. Then your address is context, not disqualification. A knock sounded. Lila entered carrying tea, fruit, toast, and scrambled eggs. I stared at the tray. This is too much. It is breakfast, Jonathan said. It is breakfast for 4 people. He glanced at the tray. Lila believes no problem exists that cannot be reduced by excessive catering. It is one of my more successful policies, she said. She placed the tea beside me and left. Jonathan waited until I picked up a piece of toast. Only then did he continue. Who removed the historical acceptance data? I swallowed. The revision log shows Martin Keller's identification number. Shows? Someone could have used his credentials. But you do not believe that. I do not have enough evidence to believe anything. Good. He turned his laptop toward himself and typed a short message. What happens now? I asked. You prove your conclusion. I just showed you the model. You showed me a discrepancy. I want the structure behind it. How long? 48 hours. I almost laughed. Historical property records alone will take a week. You will have access to the municipal data team. They do not report to me. They do now. I am an entry-level analyst. For the next 48 hours, you are the lead analyst on this review. My hand tightened around the toast. Mr. Keller will not accept that. He does not need to. You are asking me to investigate my manager. I am asking you to investigate a $40 million risk. And if the risk leads back to him? Then follow it. There it was again. Power without volume. No dramatic threat. No anger. Just permission to walk into a room everyone else had been told to avoid. I looked across the table at him. What happens if I am wrong? Then you return to your department with a clearer understanding of the project. And if I am right? His gray eyes did not move. Then the people who assume no one would notice have a problem. By 10:30, everyone in corporate risk knew I had met with Jonathan Cross. No one asked directly. They did not need to. Conversations stopped when I approached. 2 analysts avoided eye contact. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic smile usually reserved for people waiting outside hospital rooms. Martin Keller stood behind the glass wall of his office. He watched me cross the floor. Then he opened the door. Evelyn. His voice was pleasant. Too pleasant. Inside. I entered. He closed the door. Martin was 43, with carefully styled brown hair and the permanent tan of someone who vacationed in places where ordinary people served drinks by pools. He pointed toward a chair. I remained standing. I understand you had an unusual morning. I presented the South Harbor Exposure Review to the Chief Executive Officer. Yes. Without your manager. He requested the meeting. And you could not suggest proper reporting protocol? I did not think correcting Mr. Cross's invitation was part of my role. Martin's smile thinned. What exactly did you tell him? The same concerns I raised in my comments yesterday. Those comments were preliminary. The numbers did not become less accurate overnight. His eyes hardened. You are talented, Evelyn. That is why I hired you. Human Resources had hired me after 3 interviews. Martin had arrived 20 minutes late to the final one. I appreciate the opportunity. Do you? Yes. Because from where I stand, it appears that you bypassed your entire department to impress a powerful man. The accusation stung because it was designed to. I forced myself not to react. I entered the wrong elevator. And accidentally discussed confidential project data? I did not identify confidential figures until he asked for them in a formal meeting. Martin moved closer to the desk. You are 24 years old. You have been here less than a week. Do not confuse his temporary interest with protection. I do not. Good. Men like Jonathan Cross do not notice employees at your level unless they are useful. The moment you stop being useful, you disappear. The office felt cold. Is that professional advice? It is the best advice anyone in this building will give you. He returned to his chair. Send me everything you provided him. Mr. Cross instructed me to preserve the original files. I am your manager. And he is yours. Silence fell between us. Martin looked at me for a long time. Then he smiled again. 48 hours, was it? I did not ask how he knew. Yes. That is not much time. No, I hope you find what you are looking for. The way he said it made the words sound less like encouragement, and more like a locked door. By noon, my access to the residential acquisition database had been denied. By 1, the municipal data team informed me that my request had not been approved. At 1:15, the shared project folder disappeared from my computer. I contacted Information Technology. They told me my permissions were being reviewed. I sent one message to Lila. Access suspended. Unable to continue analysis. 3 minutes later, every screen on the floor went black. A system notification appeared. Executive compliance hold initiated. When the network returned, the project folder was back. My access level had changed from analyst to executive review. Across the floor, Martin stepped out of his office. His face had lost its color. My phone rang. Evelyn Hart. I answered. Jonathan's voice came through. Do you have what you need? I looked at Martin through the glass. For now. If anyone blocks you again, call me directly. That could create problems. They already created the problem. The line went silent. I thought he had ended the call. Then he spoke again. Ms. Hart. Yes? Do not mistake discomfort for danger. What does that mean? It means people who benefit from silence often make questions feel more dangerous than answers. He ended the call. I sat very still. My father had warned me about Jonathan Cross. Martin had warned me about Jonathan Cross. But Jonathan was the only person who had told me to keep asking questions. That evening, I stayed until almost 10. The office emptied around me. Numbers filled my screen. Parcel values. Tax liens. Environmental adjustments. Relocation estimates. Shell companies. South Harbor Residential Partners had purchased options on dozens of properties through separate limited liability companies, each registered to the same office in Delaware. The offers were low. Not illegally low. That was the problem. They were calculated to sit just above the point where a desperate family might accept rather than hire an attorney. Mrs. Delgado's house was one of them. So was the building where Ryan's friend Luis lived with his wife and newborn daughter. So was the corner grocery store that had extended credit to my mother when Dad first lost his job. Each address was a memory. A porch. A birthday party. A winter morning. A person the model had reduced to an occupancy code. At 9:42, I found an older spreadsheet hidden inside an archived folder. The file had been created 15 years earlier. The year of my father's accident. I opened it. A list of industrial claims filled the screen. Worker injuries. Environmental complaints. Property settlements. The company name was not Cross Meridian. It was Meridian Industrial Holdings. I searched the entity. Acquired by Cross Logistics 15 years ago. Cross Logistics had later become the foundation of Cross Meridian Group. My heart started beating faster. I scrolled through the names. Most meant nothing to me. Then I saw one I knew. Hart, Daniel P. Claim category, workplace injury. Status, confidential settlement. I stopped breathing. My father had told me he had never worked for Jonathan Cross. Technically, maybe he had not. But he had worked for a company Jonathan acquired. I clicked the attached record. Access restricted. I tried again. Executive authorization required. Behind me, a voice said, "Why are you still here?" I turned so quickly my chair struck the desk. Jonathan stood at the edge of the cubicle area. No jacket. Shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked less like the man from the magazine photographs and more like someone who had been working for 14 hours and intended to continue. "I found something." He approached. I moved aside so he could see the screen. His eyes passed over the claim list. Then stopped at my father's name. The silence changed. "What was your father's occupation?" he asked. "Industrial mechanic." "Where?" "South Shore Fabrication." Jonathan looked at the company name at the top of the archive. South Shore Fabrication became Meridian Industrial Holdings after the acquisition. He said he never worked for you. He may not believe he did. I opened the property settlement tab. A map appeared. Dozens of parcels were marked in red. Industrial land. Warehouses. Worker housing. Jonathan leaned closer. "Zoom in." I did. The map centered on South Deering. My neighborhood. My street. Red boundaries covered both sides of it. A list appeared beside the map. Priority acquisitions. I scrolled. Each parcel included an owner, estimated value, proposed offer, and occupancy deadline. Then I found our address. The house where my mother had measured our heights against the kitchen doorframe. The garage where my father repaired engines through the pain in his back. The room where Hannah had brought Lily home from the hospital. The porch where Ryan had sat beside me the night I received my scholarship letter. All of it had been translated into one line. Owner Daniel P. Hart and Margaret L. Hart. Status occupied. Acquisition priority immediate. Proposed offer $112,000. Required vacancy 90 days. My mouth went dry. That cannot be right. Jonathan said nothing. I opened the document history. The acquisition priority had been updated 3 weeks earlier. Approved by South Harbor Residential Partners. Authorized through Cross Meridian Urban Development. Jonathan reached past me and opened another panel. A chain of ownership appeared. South Harbor Residential Partners was not an independent consultant. It was controlled by 3 holding companies. All 3 led back to Cross Meridian. My family's home was not near the project. It was part of the project. Jonathan studied the screen. For the first time since I had met him, his control slipped. Not much. A tightening in his jaw. A change in his breathing. But I saw it. What? I asked. He pointed toward a code beside the acquisition status. Where did this classification come from? I do not know. It should not be here. What does it mean? He did not answer immediately. Instead, he reached for his phone. Lila, contact legal. Tell them I want every South Harbor residential acquisition frozen. Effective immediately. He listened. No exceptions. He ended the call. I stood. You already suspended acquisitions this morning. I suspended new activity. And this? This order was already active. Cold moved through me. How long? 3 weeks. My family has not received a letter. They will. When? Jonathan's eyes stayed on the screen. According to the schedule, Friday. 3 days. My father had known. That was why he had gone pale. That was why he had told me to quit. I looked at Jonathan. Did you authorize this? No, it is your company. Yes. Your name is on the building. Yes. Then how does someone take my family's home without you knowing? He accepted the question without flinching. That is what you are going to help me find out. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because the distance between us had suddenly become unbearable. He was a billionaire standing inside a tower his company owned. I was a 24-year-old analyst whose parents had 90 days to leave the only home we had ever known. You think I'm helping you? His expression tightened. I think you deserve the truth. My family deserves their house. I agree. You cannot solve this by agreeing with me. No, then what are you going to do? Jonathan looked toward the dark windows. Chicago burned beneath us in white, red, and gold. Thousands of apartments. Thousands of families. Thousands of lives invisible from this height unless someone chose to look down. When he faced me again, his voice was quiet. I am going to find out who used my company to target your neighborhood. And if it was someone you trust? Then they made a serious mistake. I closed the laptop. My father knows something. Jonathan's eyes sharpened. What? I do not know. He lied about working for Meridian Industrial Holdings. He told me to stay away from you. Did he explain why? No. Will he speak to me? Absolutely not. Then he may speak to you. I picked up my bag. I need to go home. Jonathan stepped aside immediately. He did not try to stop me. He did not order a driver. He did not offer money. For some reason, that restraint frightened me more than a display of power would have. I reached the elevator. The same private elevator from the night before stood open. I looked back. Jonathan remained beside my desk, reading the file containing my father's name. Ms. Hart. I waited. You entered the wrong elevator yesterday. I remember. His gray eyes met mine across the empty office. But I do not think you found the wrong floor. The doors closed. As the elevator carried me down, my phone vibrated. A message from my father appeared. Come home now. Do not speak to Cross again. Beneath it was a photograph. Old. Faded. 3 men stood outside the gates of South Shore Fabrication 15 years earlier. My father was on the left. A younger Jonathan Cross stood on the right. And between them was Marcus Vale, the vice chairman of Cross Meridian Group. On the back of the photograph, someone had written 5 words. We all agreed to stay silent. That was the moment I understood the truth. I had not entered Jonathan Cross's world by accident. My family had been connected to him long before I stepped into that elevator. And whatever had happened 15 years ago was not finished with any of us.